evening everyone. Now I hope you can see, right? I'm presenting this chapter. So in between, wherever doubt you have, just ask, right? Now as we were doing, so this chapter, remember that questions are going to be different, right? So time and again it has been told to you that questions will not be direct, but once you know the chapter, then you can answer any question. I repeat, do not try to mug up the answers because that will not help you. Right? Try to understand. So I'm going to start now. This is the chapter Discovering Tut. The saga continues. Now the saga, remember saga means a story or a tale, right? Written by A.R. Williams. So this chapter is written by A.R. Williams. The saga means a story or a tale. Now we are going to take up in a simple form so that you understand better. Still, if you get any problem, ask. Number one, King Tut's death was a mystery. Why it was a mystery? Because of one reason. Number one, he became an emperor when he was only a teenager, right? And he died also as a teenager. So obviously he was quite young when he became emperor, right, in Egypt, and he died also when he was quite young. And there's a reason that is unknown till date, so it is not available, the reasons are not available that how he died. So because of this his body is examined time and again. Because the reasons are unknown, that is why his body is examined time and again. Now there are two reasons why his body is examined time and again. Number one, he became an emperor when he was so young. He died also when he was too young, and the reasons are unknown. So that is why his body is examined time and again. Now the second part of this chapter that I'm taking up, that is damage caused by Howard Carter. Now Howard Carter, who was a British archaeologist, he caused major damage to the body. Number one, Howard Carter wanted to know more about King Tut and his sudden demise. Demise means death. So obviously because he became emperor so young, he died also so young. The reasons are unknown how he died. So Howard Carter wanted to know the reasons. But the problem was that he did this act of finding out the reasons of his death around 1922. At that time, technology was not developed. Technology was not that good as it is now, right, in 2023, obviously. So what he did was he took out the coffin and kept it open under the blazing heat of the sun. This was the first damage he caused. Now what he did was, just imagine that he took out the coffin in which King Tut was laid, and he kept it open under the blazing heat of the sun. So blazing means too hot, right? Burning heat of the sun. You can imagine the temperature must be some 50 to 55, something like that. So he opened the coffin and kept it open under the blazing heat of the sun. And the intention, the reason he said was to melt the resins which glued the body with the coffin. Now, according to rituals, the people of Egypt, they used to stick the body with the coffin with the help of raisins. Now, in order to melt those raisins, Howard Carter kept the coffin open under the blazing heat of the sun. This was the first damage he caused, and the second was truly, awful, and that was he tried to chisel out body parts and caused grave damage to the body. So when he was not able to melt those raisins, he was not able to take out the body as a complete body. Then he tried to chisel out body parts and caused grave damage to the body. He even separated the head from the body. He even separated all the major joints of the body. So obviously this was not acceptable, but then he caused that damage. Now goes the question, why is King Tut's death a mystery? So why is his death a mystery? Because number one, he became an emperor when he was a teenager or he was quite young. He died also when he was too young, and the reasons of his death are unknown. Therefore, King Tut's death remains a mystery. Right? Mystery you know very well. So, King Tut's death has been a mystery because number one, he became emperor when he was too young, he died also quite young, and the reasons of his death are unknown. So, his death remains a mystery. Number two, what is the possible reason of his death? So, till date, nobody knows the possible reason of his death. The mystery of his death is unknown. Nobody knows the reason. And number three, why is King Tut's body examined repeatedly? Reason remains the same. Number one, he became an emperor when he was a teenager. He died also quite young. The reasons of his death are unknown. Therefore, his body is examined repeatedly. Is that okay? So 1, 2, and 3. These questions which are given separately, the answers of all these three questions will remain almost similar. Is that okay? If you find any difficulty in between, just ask. Number 4, what was Howard Carter's intention? What was his intention? So, his intention was he wanted to find out the reason of the death of King Tut. So, his intention was quite good, his intention was not bad. But then, what he did to fulfill his intention was truly bad. So, why bad? Because it was not logical, right? It was not at all logical. That is question number 5. What did Carter do with King Tut's coffin and why? So, what did Carter do? He took out King Tut's coffin and he opened the coffin and he kept it under the blazing heat of the sun. So, and why he did that? He wanted to melt the raisins which glued the body with the coffin, right? Which glued, right? So, you know, glue, right? So, similarly, glued is the past tense. So, what did Carter do with King Tut's coffin? So, what he did was he opened the coffin and he kept it under the blazing heat of the sun. Why he did that? Because he wanted to melt the raisins which glued the body with the coffin. Is that okay? Question number 5, the answer is clear. If you have any doubt, then ask. Now question number 6, what did Carter do with King Tut's mummy and why? So what did he do? He chiseled out the body parts. What he did was he broke every joint. What he did was he even separated the head from the mummy, from the body. And why he did that? Because he wanted to take out the body from the coffin. He wanted to find out the reason of his death. Obviously, he wanted to take out the body from the coffin. So therefore, he chiseled out the body parts. He cut down all the major joints, and he even separated the head from the mummy. Right? Then the next question: how did Carter justify what he did? So Carter justified in this way. It so happened that whenever Egyptian kings were buried, they were buried with lots and lots of gold and whatever they loved. King Tut used to love, naturally, he had a liking for gold, and therefore his body was all, covered with gold. So Carter justified that he cut down all the major joints and he separated the head. He said that actually he did so that the thieves should not steal the gold. So he gave this reason for chiseling out the body parts. So what he said was, he said that he did not want the thieves to steal all the gold. Right? So these are first 7 questions. So why is King Tut's death a mystery? Because he became emperor when he was too young. He died also when he was too young, and the reasons of his death are unknown till date. Possible reason of his death? No one knows. So it is still a mystery. Why is King Tut's body examined repeatedly? So because he became an emperor when he was merely a teenager. He died also when he was too young, and the reasons of his death are unknown till date. What was Howard Carter's intention? So he wanted to find out the reason of King Tut's death. What did Carter do with King Tut's coffin? So he opened the coffin and kept it under the blazing heat of the sun. Now, why he did that? He wanted to melt the resins which connected or glued the body with the coffin. Glued, Glued. Now, what did Carter do with King Tut's mummy, with his body? What did he do? So, he chiseled out the body parts, he cut down the major joints, he even separated the head from the mummy. And why he did that? Because he wanted to take out the body from the coffin. How did Carter justify what he did? So he said that he had done right only because he did not want the thieves to steal all the gold that King Tut was covered with. Is that okay? Any problem with these 7? If you have any problem, then ask. You can ask later on also, but this is the right time to ask. Now we move on. So things King Tut was buried with. So now Egyptians believed in resurrection. As I told you that it is life after death. So Egyptian people used to believe that the kings would require all the things even after death in their next life. So they used to keep all the things along with the body, whichever the kings used to love. So King Tut also loved quite many things, and he required also so many things. So he was buried in a 3-nested coffin. 3-nested coffin, so there were 3 layers in the coffin. So one of the layers contained a lot many flowers and petals, right, which remained, and those flowers and petals, they are mostly found during spring season, like March and April kind of. So there is an idea that perhaps King Tut died somewhere in between March and April. Then one of the levels or one of the layers of the coffin contained all the precious things and the necessary items which King Tut required. So there were gold artifacts, there was necklace, his gold necklace, his gold bracelet, there were board game, right, like chess, and there was razor, there were linen undergarments and cases of food and wine. So these were all the things which not only he loved but also he required in his next life as believed by the Egyptians. So as the next point goes, that Egyptians believed in life after death. They believed in resurrection. So they believed that king would need everything even after his death. So the third question or third point which comes in the chapter is things King Tut was buried with. So he was buried in a 3-nested coffin. He was buried along with gold artifacts, necklace, bracelet, board game, razor, linen undergarments, and cases of food and wine. Now, why so many things were kept? Because Egyptians believed in life after death, which is called resurrection. They believed that king would need everything even after his death. Right, this is the third one. If any doubt, then unmute yourself and ask. Now we move on to King Tut's past. This, as I told you in the class also, a very important question. Now after there was one of the either father of King Tut or grandfather, and his name was Amenhotep III. Right, he was either the father or the grandfather of King Tut. After Amenhotep III, Amenhotep IV came. Now this Amenhotep IV, he stopped the worship of Amun god. Now you see name Amun god, right? So all the Egyptian kings used to keep their names also like Amen kind of, right? Connected with Amun god. But when Amenhotep IV became the emperor, he stopped the worship of Amun god. He started the worship of Aten god. Right? He changed his name also. So he changed his name to Aten, which contained Aten now. He changed the capital of Egypt also. He changed from Thebes to Amarna. Then he closed all the temples of Amun god and smashed the idols of Amun god, broke the idols of Amun god. Right? Smashed, as we have done in We Are Not Afraid to Die, all the decks were smashed. So the same meaning goes over here. So what is this King Tut's past? So there was Amenhotep III. After Amenhotep III, who came? Amenhotep IV. He stopped the worship of Amun god and he started the worship of Aten god. He changed his name also from Amenhotep to Akhenaten. He changed the capital also from Thebes to Amarna. He closed the temples of Amun god and smashed the idols of Amun god. Idols, statues. Right? So this is the fourth one. So the first one was King Tut's death was a mystery. Second was what did Howard Carter do? Third, King the all the things which King Tut was buried with, and fourth, King Tut's past. Right? You should be thorough with these points. Remember, questions will not come directly. But if you know all these points, you can answer any question. Right? So we move on. If you have got problem, please ask. How's the coffin of King Tut? So it is three nested. As I told you, remember it's three layered. You can say three nested. You can say. So one of the layers contained all the flowers and petals, which are mostly found in March and April. So perhaps King Tut died somewhere between March and April. Then another layer contained all the things King Tut loved. So that is the second question. What was King Tut buried with? So he was buried with so many things. There were gold artifacts, right? Bracelet, necklace, right? Cases of food and wine, linen, undergarments, board games, right? So many things were kept which King Tut loved and he required also. Now the third question goes, why were the things King Tut loved kept in his coffin? So why were these things kept in his coffin? Because Egyptians believed in resurrection. They believed in life after death. They believed that the kings would require all those things even after death. Right? First three, if any doubt, then ask. So we move on. The fourth one. Who succeeded Amenhotep III? So it was Amenhotep IV. What name did he adopt? So he adopted the name Akhenaten. So why Akhenaten? That is the fifth question. Whose worship was initiated by the new pharaoh? The pharaoh is the Egyptian king. Right, as told in the class. So whose worship was initiated? It was Aten god. And that is why he changed his name from Amenhotep IV to Akhenaten. What was the change in the capital? So it was changed from Thebes to Amarna. Which temples were closed by the new pharaoh? So they were the temples of Amun god. Right? So how is the coffin of King Tut? It is three nested. So you must know that one of the layers contained some flowers and petals which are found somewhere, which bloom somewhere in March and April. So we can assume that King Tut died somewhere between March and April. Now what was King Tut buried with? So he was buried with lot many things. There were gold artifacts, necklace, right? There were bracelet, there were board games, there were linen undergarments, and there were even cases of food and wine. So why were these things? Kept? Because these things were kept because uh, Egyptians believed in resurrection. Right? So Egyptians believed in resurrection, life after death. Now, who succeeded Amenhotep III? So it was Amenhotep IV. What name did he adopt? So he adopted the name Akhenaten. Whose worship was initiated by the new pharaoh? So it was Aten god. What was the change in the capital? So the capital was changed from Thebes to Amarna. Which temples were closed by the new pharaoh? So they were temples of Amun god. Right? These seven are clear. So now we have done these seven. If you have problem in these seven, then ask. After the class, I will be sending these questions. So you ask if you are having any doubt. First these seven, then these seven. Any doubt? Anything you want to ask? Okay, I believe that you are understanding. Good. So now we move on. So about the characters as we are reading. So this is Howard Carter. Then the you can see right one in this black hat, a black and white pic is here. So first of all, this King Tut, right? So King Tut was the last heir of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. His preserved body was the first to be scanned. After after his body was scanned, after that, there was a mission which went on, and Egyptian kings they were scanned. The mummies were scanned. So King Tut was the last heir of a powerful family. Last heir, he was the last one, last successor who of the family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. Howard Carter, he was a British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered King Tut's tomb. So in 1922 he had done so, and his search caused great damage to the king's preserved body. So obviously, because as you know now that first of all he opened the coffin and he kept the coffin under the blazing heat of the sun to melt the raisins which glued the body with the coffin. The second thing he did was, which was truly damaging, that he chiseled out the body parts. So he severed or he cut down the major joints. He even separated the head from the mummy. So his search caused great damage to the king's preserved body. The next character that you can see, that one in blue shirt, Zahi Hawass. He happened to be Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. He scanned King Tut's mummy for an accurate forensic reconstruction. Now, accurate, right? Which is flawless, which is correct, right? Forensic reconstruction means, it is studying the dead body for the possible reasons of the death. Reconstruction, obviously, to find out how King Tut died. So he was the one who went scientifically. And he also said, Zahi was also said that Howard Carter caused a great damage to King Tut's body. Then the next one, Amenhotep III, as I told you, he was either King Tut's father or he was grandfather. And he was a powerful ruler who ruled for almost 4 decades. After him came Amenhotep IV. He became a bit wacky and he promoted the worship of Aten god. He changed his name also to Akhenaten. He outraged the country. Outraged means obviously everybody was angry. And he started attacking Amun, a major god, by smashing his images, his idols, and closing his temples. So Amenhotep III, Amenhotep IV, and after Amenhotep IV, some unknown ruler came. After him, King Tut came. Right? So now we move on. So King Tut was the last heir of a powerful family that ruled Egypt. Howard Carter, so he was a British archaeologist who discovered King Tut's tomb. Zahi Hawass, he was a Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Amenhotep III, he was either King Tut's father or grandfather. Amenhotep IV, so he was the one who changed his name to Akhenaten. He smashed the idols of Amun god, closed all the temples of Amun god. If any problem coming up, then ask. If any problem is there, then ask. So these are the highlights which we have just now done. So I'll quickly go through so that you understand. Chapter highlights. Number 1, King Tut, his full name is Tutankhamun, right? Now why Tutankhamun again? So remember that when he became the emperor, he restored the worship of Amun god. He again stopped the worship of Aten god and he started the worship of Amun god, which all the people wanted. He changed his name also. Instead of, first his name was Tutankhaten. right? And then he changed his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun. Is that clear? If any doubt is coming, then ask. So, what I'm telling, when King Tut became the emperor, his name was Tutankhaten, King Tutankhaten. Because by that time, Amenhotep IV had started the worship of Aten god. But when King Tutankhaten came to power, he stopped the worship of Aten god and he again started the worship of Amun god. He changed his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun. See, Amun's name is coming in his name now. Now he died as a teenage pharaoh. Pharaoh is Egyptian king and was buried laden with gold. So too much of gold was there because he used to love gold. Now he was the last king of a powerful family that ruled Egypt for centuries. On 5th January 2005, um, some, you can easily join those who are trying to join. Um, this is auto join. Now, on 5th January 2005, his mummy was brought out of his tomb and a CT scan was done to ascertain the reason of his death. So, as we had taken up in the class, first of all, in 1922, right, Howard Carter did took out King Tut's coffin and wanted to find out the reason of his death. After that, even in 1968, it was done. In 2005, the first time scientifically the process was done, a CT scan was done to ascertain the reason of his death. Right? So, as I told you, CT is computed tomography. So 5th January 2005. So when this was done, multitudes of tourists from around the world came to visit the tomb to pay their respects. So when in 2005 on 5th January the mummy was brought out of the tomb once again, so millions of tourists came from around the world to pay their respects. Right? So as if you remember that we had the scene that in the PDF of the chapter that some of the tourists were standing silently, some were talking in very slow voice they were talking, some were reading in the guidebooks, right? And some were scared also. They were scared. They thought that they were disturbing King Tut's he's lying so peacefully and they were disturbing him, so there can be a curse of the pharaoh. So some were scared also. So some were reading from the guidebooks, some were simply standing, they were paying their tributes, some were talking very silently, and some were scared also that they were disturbing King Tut, so there can be curse of the pharaoh. Now Zahi Hawass, he said that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what Carter did to it. Howard Carter, he had discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922 and investigated its contents. Carter faced difficulty in extracting the mummy out of the coffin. The ritual raisins had hardened, resulting in cementing King Tut's mummy to the bottom of his gold coffin. So raisins were used to stick the stick the body with the bottom of the coffin. Now Howard Carter tried to loosen the raisins using the sun, right? Keeping the coffin open under the blazing heat of the sun. After that, his men removed the mummy's head and cut off nearly every major joint before reassembling it. So much of damage was caused already by Howard Carter in 1922. Now King Tut's mummy was brought out for CT scan on. So it was brought out on 5th January in the year 2005. Right? So you will remember that on 5th January 2005, the mummy was brought out for CT scan. Tourists visited the place at that time too. Right? So why did they visit? To pay their tributes. Right? So why did they visit? They wanted to pay their tributes, to pay their respects. Right? Then some praised the murals, some that were murals as I told you in the class, Virats are the paintings on the walls. Some read from the guidebook about King Tut and some prayed fearing King Tut's curse upon getting disturbed. Now the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, he was Zahi Hawass. What he said that Howard Carter caused great damage, that King Tut's mummy was in a very bad shape because of what Howard Carter did. Right? So Zahi Hawass, he said that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what Carter did to it. Then Howard Carter, who was he? He was a British archaeologist. What did he discover? He discovered King Tut's tomb in the year 1922. Right? So you will remember Howard Carter, the British archaeologist, discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922. Right? The difficulty Carter faced in, so what difficulty he faced in removing the body from the coffin? Because of the raisins, right, which had glued the body with the coffin, which resulted in naturally he was not able to melt those raisins. So as it is, he faced a difficulty in extracting the mummy out of the coffin. Why? Because the raisins had cemented King Tut's mummy to the bottom of the coffin. Right? So what Carter did was he kept the coffin open under the blazing heat of the sun. Now when he was unable to do so, Howard Carter first tried to melt the raisins by keeping the coffin open under the blazing heat of the sun. And then what he did was he chiseled out the body parts, causing severe damage to the mummy. Is that okay? King Tut's mummy was brought out for CT scan on 5th January 2005. Tourists visited the place at that time to pay their respects or their tribute. Some praised the murals that were painting on the walls. Some were reading from the guidebook about King Tut, and some were praying also. They were scared about King Tut's curse upon getting disturbed. Zahi Hawass, the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, he said that King Tut's mummy was in a very bad shape because of what Carter did to his body, did to the mummy in 1922. Howard Carter was a British archaeologist. He discovered King Tut's tomb in the year 1922. The difficulty Carter faced was in removing the mummy from the coffin because of the ritual raisins, which resulted in cementing the body with the coffin. Howard Carter first tried to melt those raisins by keeping the coffin open under the blazing heat of the sun, and then chiseled out the body parts, causing severe damage to the mummy. Okay, if any problem, then ask. Now in 1968, the anatomy professor x-rayed the mummy and revealed a startling fact. As I told you, 1968 also the body had been investigated, and one of the anatomy professor x-rayed the mummy and he revealed a startling fact. He disclosed a shocking fact, and the fact was that the breastbone and the front ribs of the mummy were missing. Right, so breastbone and front ribs of the mummy were missing. Now the problem is whether it happened because of some accident that King Tut had, or Howard Carter broke that. Right? Then Amenhotep III, as we have already done, he was King Tut's father or grandfather, was a powerful king, succeeded by Amenhotep IV, who promoted the worship of Aten. The sun disk changed his name to Akhenaten, made some other changes also, like changing the capital from Thebes to Amarna. Then closing all the idols, closing all the temples and smashing the idols. King Tut's mummy was one of the first mummies to be scanned. The CT scan showed a grey head, neck vertebrae, a hand, several images of the ribcage and section of the skull. So obviously, CT scan shows everything. Now Zahi Hawass was relieved to find that nothing had gone seriously wrong with the mummy. After their observations, when they left, the wind had stopped and there was complete silence. Just above the entrance to the King Tut's tomb stands Orion. This is the last paragraph of the chapter. So just keep in mind this fact that where King Tut's tomb is there, right, where his coffin is laid, his tomb. Outside, just above the entrance, stands Orion. Right, Orion is there Orion is a constellation watching over the boy king. Right? So it is on this, like this, a chapter ends up. So in the year 1968, an anatomy professor revealed that the breastbone and front ribs were missing, right? Then Amenhotep III was succeeded by Amenhotep IV, who promoted the worship of Aten god and changed his name to Akhenaten. He changed the capital also from Thebes to Amarna and closed temples of Amun god. Zayavas was relieved that serious damage was not done. Obviously, now we don't know whether the breastbone and front ribs broke because of accident or because of the damage caused by Howard Carter. Orion is the name of the constellation which is situated just above the entrance of King Tut's tomb. It seems to be watching over the boy king. Right, so I'm going slow. It's not necessary that I'm taking up another chapter also. You understand that is more important. Okay, so now who was I think these you should be able to answer. So who was Howard Carter? What was his discovery? So he was a British archaeologist, right? He discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922, around 3,300 years after his death. 3,300 years after his death. So Tut died at the age of 19, but his death was a mystery for all. He was the last ruler of the powerful family that ruled Egypt for centuries. People believe that King Tut died in mysterious circumstances and his death may involve every possibility of even murder. But nobody knows the fact. Now, why did King Tut's mummy have to undergo CT scan? So the mummy of King Tut has earned worldwide fame for the riches it was buried with, like gold artifacts and gold necklace and bracelets and all. Further, there arose a great controversy about the manner of his death, right? Because the reasons are unknown. It's a mystery how he died. And his age at that time of death, and because he was too young also. Keeping in view this controversy, King Tut's body was ordered to be scanned to examine the delayed medical mysteries about his life and death. So people want to know, right? How was his life? How he died? What was the reason? Then in 1968, what was a startling fact that was revealed by a professor of anatomy about King Tut? So in 1968, more than 40 years after Carter's discovery of King Tut's tomb, that is 1922, a professor of anatomy x-rayed King Tut's mummy. He revealed an astonishing fact, a shocking fact, startling fact, that beneath the resin that layers his chest, his breastbone and front ribs are missing. It startled everyone. It shocked everyone, obviously. Now, what did tourists do at that time? So the tourists from around the world, they queued up as usual all afternoon into the narrow rock cut tomb. So they were standing over there. They lined up to pay their homage to King Tut. Homage, tribute, respect. They watched the murals also on the walls of the burial chamber, all those paintings on the walls. Some visitors read from guidebook, others stood silently. They were trying to look at Tut's gilded face. They were trying to peep into that. Who did point out that mummy was in a bad condition? Who was held responsible for that? So as we have done, it was Zahi Hawass, who was the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, who said that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what Carter did in the 1920s. Because in 1922, Carter had discovered King Tut's tomb. I hope you are finding it simple now after revision. Why was King Tut's demise a big event, even by royal standards? So King Tut's death was, of course, a big event. Even by royal standards, he was the last ruler in his family line. His funeral was a deathbed of a dynasty that ruled in Egypt for centuries. So that was the end of that end of that powerful family which ruled Egypt for centuries. Now, this big event is also because of the fact that we know he died unexpectedly at young age, mysteriously. No one knows the reason of his death, and he was too young. The particulars of his passing and its aftermath are not clear. How he died, right? What were the reasons? right? Nobody knows. So obviously it remains a big event. Why? Because the big event, you do remember that he was the last heir of the powerful dynasty that ruled Egypt for centuries. So by royal standards also this is important. So just imagine he was the last heir, like he was the last successor. After that there was no one in his family. Why did some people think that King Tut's untimely death as a pharaoh's curse? So when after Akhenaten, you know that Akhenaten was Amenhotep IV. He changed his name from Amenhotep IV to Akhenaten. So mischievous ruler became the king for a short while and died. After that, a young Tutankhaten took the throne. As I told you that earlier King Tut was Tutankhaten. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, that is living image of Amun. He restored the worship of Amun, whose images were broken and temples were closed by that pharaoh Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten. Thus, King Tut disturbed the pharaoh Akhenaten, and his curse, death Akhenaten, had befallen on Tut, causing his untimely death in his late teens. So people believe like that also. So people say that why King Tut died. So some people, this may be a bit superstitious also. So they say that because Akhenaten started the worship of Aten god, right, or closed all the temples of Amun god, and what Tutankhaten did was he restored the worship of Amun god and changed his name also to Tutankhamun. So in this manner, he disturbed who Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten. So that Akhenaten became angry after his death, and because of his curse, King Tut died so early. Right? So this is a superstition also, but then this people have got this belief also. Now, what problem did Carter face when he reached the mummy of King Tut? So obviously, you know that his the mummy, the body was glued to the coffin, right? He was not able to melt those coffins. After that, he chiseled out the body parts. So as you can see, the third last line of question number eight, answer number 8, his men removed Tut's head and severed every major joint. Right? Then they kept the body on a layer of sand. He defended his act lest the mummy should not fall into the hands of thieves for getting gold. He said that it was important, otherwise the thieves would have destroyed the body to get all the gold. Now, some of the adornments on King Tut's body, so they were, they were all things with their necklaces, with their rings, with their right, precious collars, with their bracelets, amulets, a ceremonial apron, sandals were there, right, sheets for fingers and toes, right, all the gold coverings for fingers and toes, right, in a golden coffin and mask. So it was all of them were made of pure gold. So according to the beliefs, according to that it was a belief of resurrection, it was thought they could take their riches with them to the great beyond. So even after their death, they would be requiring all those things. So quite strange, of course, but then this is how Egyptians believed. How did Carter defend his action of cutting the mummy free? So we have already done this. That he said otherwise thieves would have stolen all the gold. How can CT scan prove more effective than X-rays? So you must know, right? This is the age of technology. You should know the difference. CT scan can prove more effective than X-rays because it produces hundreds of X-rays in cross-section which are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional virtual body. So whereas X-ray produces only one-dimensional, this image, whereas CT scan is like hundreds of X-rays in cross section, right? And after that, a three-dimensional, a 3D virtual body is prepared so that it can be, obviously it is more efficient, it is more fruitful to find out more about human body. Explain the statement King Tut is one of the first mummies to be scanned in death as in life. This is given behind the chapter also, this question. So answer is very simple. The answer is same which you have done. Mummy of King Tut was the first one to be scanned. The purpose was to reveal the mysteries relating to the period when he was alive. So how he died, right? He was so young when he became emperor. He died also so young. It also helped to find out the cause of his death in mysterious circumstances. The death occurred only 9 years after his taking the throne. So, as assumed that he was around 19 when he died, right? So, yeah, and he ruled for around 9 years, right? So, somewhere King Tut is one of the first mummies to be scanned. So, he was very young when he became emperor. He died also very young. The reasons of his death are unknown. Then list the deeds that led Ray Johnson to describe Akhenaten as wacky. This is again given behind a chapter. This question is given behind the chapter. Akhenaten was a crazy and rash ruler. Right? We know that very well. He was wacky. Wacky is crazy. How come? Because he attacked Amun, a major god, broke his statues, closed his temples, even changed the religious capital from Thebes to Amarna. He even changed his name from Amenhotep IV to Akhenaten. So he was a crazy and rash ruler. Right? So Ray Johnson said that Akhenaten was wacky. Right? If any doubt is coming up, do ask. So I'm taking only this chapter today so that this chapter is clear to you. Still, if any doubt, you can ask me anytime. So we are moving almost towards the second last slide is this as we are taking up. What did the CT scan of Tut's mummy reveal? So CT scan gave surprising as well as fascinating images of Tut's body. So the image gave somewhat, a grey head appeared on the computer screen, neck bones appeared quite clearly. Other images of Tut's body appeared on the screen. They included a hand and several views of rib cage and the skull. So CT scan is naturally quite a powerful tool, powerful aid in technology. Curse of the Pharaoh, the 15th question. Curse of the Pharaoh, joked the guard nervously. So it so happened that when the body was taken for CT scan in 2005, right, 5th January 2005. So the fans of the CT scan machine got stuck with the sand dust and stopped working during scanning of the mummy. So suddenly the fans of the CT scan machine stopped working. So one of the guards, he jokingly said that it was a curse of the pharaoh because you were disturbing him, therefore it is a curse. And later on, another pair of plastic fans were arranged, which worked well enough. The curse of the pharaoh, as believed in. So two times his curse is coming, right? Do remember? Number one regarding King Tut's death. So because King Tut angered, as people say, King Tut angered Akhenaten, right? Therefore, King Tut died so early. And then after that, it comes over here when King Tut's body was taken for CT scan in 2005. The fans got stuck with the sand and stopped working. So people said that it can be the curse of the pharaoh. Who pharaoh now? Tutankhaten or Tutankhamun rather, right? So this is how it is. For any problem, ask anything you want, any problem you get or anything you want.